Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We have a couple announcements as everyone joins in here. First, we are recording this session and it will be available here in Excel Events for the next 30 days, and then on the Alliance's YouTube channel after that. Secondly, if you would like to ask a question during the session, please make sure to use the Q&A area to the right of the viewing window. If you'd like to access English or Spanish captions or Spanish audio translation, please use the widget below this viewing screen, or you can use the link that I just dropped into the chat to access them in a separate window. Finally, this is a webinar breakout session. The speakers will not be able to see you, but they will be able to see your chat and Q&A comments in the panel on the right. So please feel free to use that throughout the session. All right. So I'm going to hand it off to Summer to get us going. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. We're so delighted you are here. You are joining us for Strengthening Summer EBT Success, Outreach Strategies for Community Partners and Schools. And we have a packed agenda, so I'm going to dive right in. In the time that we have, we're going to start off with just an overview of Summer EBT and do some level setting. And then we'll talk about Summer EBT communication to families and specifically highlight the No Kid Hungry Summer EBT pilot that just wrapped this past summer. And then we'll dive in on a pilot state that was part of the No Kid Hungry pilot, Kentucky, and then we will have time for Q&A at the end. But like was said, if you have questions in real time, please pop them into the chat and we will do our best to answer them in real time. Otherwise, we will get to them at the end of the session. So our speakers today, I'm Summer Kriegshauser. I am a senior manager at No Kid Hungry. I'm joined by my colleague, Allison Maurice, who is also a senior manager at No Kid Hungry. And we also have John Kane of Feeding Kentucky, who is the Kentucky Kids Eat Program Director. And without further ado, I will pass it to Allison to talk about Summer EBT 101.
Thanks so much, Summer, and thank you all for joining us today. Before I jump into what is Summer EBT, just to kind of lay a little groundwork that during the summertime, that can be the most hungry time of year for kids. And we know that close to 30 million children every day use school meals during the school year, and during the summer, they lose access to these critical meals. So Summer EBT is one of those ways to fill that gap. And so what is Summer EBT? It is a benefit that is $120 per family that eligible families can use, similarly to SNAP, and purchase groceries at the store during the summer months. And one of the great things about Summer EBT is that it is evidence-based policy at its best. Like, we know Summer EBT works. We know that it reduces hunger among our most vulnerable children, and that demonstration projects also showed that it actually increases consumption of fruits and vegetables. So we're going to dive in today and talk a bit more about what the program looks like in more detail. I'm going to zoom through those basics because we really want to hear from the pilots and John today in Kentucky. And we apologize about the slides. I think we'll get there, but I think an important grounding place to start is that Summer EBT is only available in some places. States actually need to opt into the program. And so while 100% of the benefits that go out to families are fully federally funded, states do have to cover an administrative cost to running the program. And that can sometimes be a barrier. But so all of that's to say, we hope you have Summer EBT in your community, but just to know that states do need to opt into the program each year. So it may not be available everywhere. So now let's talk about who is eligible for Summer EBT. These are school-age children that are already participating in another public benefit or need-based program such as SNAP, TANF, etc., or their children that have already been certified to receive National School Lunch or School Breakfast Program. Or if they don't fall into one of those categories, as long as they attend a school operating school meals and they meet the 185% of the poverty threshold, they are also eligible for Summer EBT. Next slide. So how do households actually enroll in the program? Most eligible children will be automatically enrolled for Summer EBT. Like I said, if the child is already participating in one of those income tested programs like SNAP or TANF, they will be automatically enrolled into Summer EBT. Similarly, if the child has been certified for free or reduced price school meals through an application, they will automatically receive the benefit. There is some variation state by state on exactly how this works, but these are the two main groups of kids that are automatically enrolled in the program and therefore do not need to fill out an application. Next slide. But there are some children that will need to apply for Summer EBT. And it's a little confusing, I know, to have different ways of coming into the program. But for some children, like I said, if they are not already participating in one of those income-based programs, or they haven't already been certified for free or reduced price school meals, they can apply for Summer EBT. The key is that they must be attending a school that operates the National School Lunch Program. Therefore, if there is a child that is homeless, there is a child that is homeschooled and they are not already enrolled in SNAP, not enrolled in TANF, they are actually not eligible to apply. However, if a child is homeschooled and enrolled in SNAP or TANF, they will be automatically enrolled into the program. I encourage you not to get too hung up on the nuances and details here. I know it can be a bit confusing, but what's really important today is to generally understand Summer EBT and the examples that we're going to show of how you can get involved in your community. But just to give you a sense that it can be a bit confusing for families as they engage with this program, given that some kids are automatically enrolled and some kids do need to apply. Next slide. There are tools out there that can help families quickly check if they are eligible and then direct them directly to their state agency website to learn more information. So Albertsons Foundation, we partnered with them and a host of other organizations to put together these eligibility checkers so that a parent could go through and select which state they live in and answer a few kind of low barrier questions to get an idea as to whether they are eligible for the program and whether they may need to apply or if they should be reaching out to their state to find out more information about whether they will be automatically enrolled. So just want to make sure you know that this tool is out there. You don't have to be the expert on eligibility. There's a tool out there to help you. Next slide. So how does Summer EBT work? You can move to the next one. The unfortunate thing when we talk about it at a national level is that it kind of depends on the state. Pretty much though, what will happen is the benefit, the $120 benefit goes onto an EBT card. Now, where there's some variation is that a state might send out a new Summer EBT card. They might co-load the benefits on an existing SNAP card if the household already has one. And there sometimes can be a mix of both happening in a single state. So good advice is to tell, people that you are speaking with, if they received a Summer EBT, also known as Sunbucks card in the mail, keep it for next summer because there may be a chance that the state will load those benefits back onto that card. And similarly, if the state is loading benefits onto an existing SNAP card to help people understand that maybe that's where the benefits go. But you really need to look at how your state operates the program to really get a sense of exactly how it works. But for the most part, this is generally how it happens. It's either on a brand new Summer EBT card or co-loaded onto an existing SNAP EBT card. Next slide. So how can you support Summer EBT in your community? We're going to hear from Summer and John in just a little bit, but I think, just it's a brand new program. There's a lot of awareness building that we still need to do. So just learning about it, amplifying messages, raising awareness, and help connect people with the information that they need to find out how they may be either enrolled or how they might be able to use the summer EBT benefits. Again, no one is expecting, community partners to be experts on eligibility. What is really important is that you know where to direct families to find out more information. So summerebt.org is a great place to learn basic eligibility information, but really at the end of the day, your state agency website is going to give you the most tailored information for exactly how it operates in your community. So I think here's a few resources just to let you know. I know we had a little issue with the slides at the beginning. There's lots of text in them that will explain everything I just covered in more detail. So please do you refer to these slides later as you are wanting to learn more about Summer EBT. And I will stop there and pass it on to Summer.
Thanks so much, Allison. That was such a wonderful level set about Summer EBT. And I take full responsibility for the slides. So I sincerely apologize, but the information you provided, Allison, is so critical for understanding just the nuances of Summer EBT and how things can be similar in different states or different. So I'm going to be talking about communicating to families about Summer EBT and just quickly talking about the No Kid Hungry SEBT pilot, which happened in summer 2025. And it was all about increasing awareness for families about Summer EBT and supporting families who are eligible, making sure they get Summer EBT. So this pilot had some big goals. First was to improve communication, just making sure families were getting the information that they needed about this program and testing out outreach strategies to see what landed to really ensure that those eligible families and especially those in vulnerable communities were able to receive Summer EBT and specifically in an effective and efficient manner. We also wanted to see the rates of SEBT go up. We wanted to see participation in this program difference between summer 2024 and summer 2025. And then, of course, we wanted to learn. We wanted to learn as much as we could from the partners that we were working with around innovation, successes, how to connect with families, and of course, the challenges. So we partnered with 5 states, Arizona, Arkansas, Kentucky, Michigan, and Nebraska. And each partnership looked a little bit different. As Allison talked about, SEBT can look different across the nation depending on what state you're in or even what school your kids are in. So our partnerships in each of these states looked a little bit different, but we were able to collaborate and partner with state agencies, community organizations, and we partnered with specific school districts that we knew had a touch point to families and were the trusted messengers in their communities around SEBT. The way we supported the partners that we worked with was essentially 3 ways. There was grant funding, there were resources that we provided, and then there was programmatic support. So the grant funding went to capacity building, ensuring there was enough boots on the ground, so to speak, to get information out to families and connect with families. Social media was a part of the grant funding, getting information out that way. Funding went towards marketing materials and translation services. And translation services was usually in the form of either translated resources to different languages, or there might be an actual translator at an event that would be very helpful for families to understand more about SEBT or even help them apply if they needed to apply. We created a suite of resources that were directed towards families that schools could use to get the information out there and provide the critical information that families needed about Summer EBT, including flyers, text messages, robocalls, social media posts, and emails. And we also know that all school staffers may not know about SEBT, partly because it's nuanced, per state, and also it's still a relatively new program. So we provided staff information guides because we know families are going to come to schools and ask questions, and we wanted the school staff to be informed about the program. And we also provided outreach timelines to help schools really think through when they might be disseminating these resources and how to maximize when those resources might reach families. And then finally, with the programmatic support, that looked like technical assistance, sometimes even IT assistance and support, and then checking in with our partners to make sure things were going okay or how we could troubleshoot together, really building a thought partnership to make the most of summer 2025 in SEBT. And then before I hand it off to John, I want to share some of the takeaways from the school districts specifically that we worked with, because John will be talking about the community partnership aspect of the pilot program and his experience. So the school districts, based on our work with them, 3 big takeaways that I want to share. One is the mechanisms to reach families. E-newsletters was huge. We heard that was a success. Also, direct emails to families. Social media was across the board always a tool used to get information out there. Flyers, texts, robocalls, and in-person events as well. And this would be like a summer feeding event for if the school also operated summer meals. And they had information on Summer EBT at the ready, or a school staffer at the ready at the summer meal site to share information with families and be able to ask questions and maybe even help with application if need be. And then finally, information on the on the district website was always very, very helpful. The strategies for success that we heard from schools was consistency in communication, a constant drumbeat of SEBT information going out, because you never know where information might land with families. Targeted student and family communication. So these are the direct emails, these are the texts, these are the robocalls, and even those in-person events can be a direct targeted communication. And then pre-summer communication. So we heard that it was really critical to get information out to families before the school year ended, before summer began, because once summer started, there was no guarantee that families were going to get the communication that they were sending out. So getting that information before the school year ended was critical. And then I want to highlight one big challenge that we heard across the board, and Allison even talked about this, is that communication, the difference between being in a CEP school, a kiddo being in a CEP school, and being in a non-CEP school, and that being a point of confusion for families about who is eligible, who's automatically eligible, who needs to apply. So this is a challenge that we heard from schools, and it's important for us to recognize this because that helps us think through how to support families better in 2026. So with that, I'm going to pass it along to John, and he is going to talk about his experience in Kentucky working on this No Kid Hungry pilot.
Thank you very much, Summer, and it's a pleasure to be here today. Greetings from the Bluegrass State. And as Summer mentioned, I'm going to talk about the Summer EBT outreach pilot that we did in Kentucky during this past summer. Next slide, Summer. This is going to be tricky. Your name is Summer, and I'm talking about Summer EBT. So I just want to kind of talk to you a little bit about the players in Kentucky. I work for Feeding Kentucky, which is our state's largest charitable response to hunger. We're a state partner association for Feeding America, meaning our network of 7 Feeding America member food banks and 900 plus pantries and serve all 120 counties of Kentucky. And the staff at Feeding Kentucky focus on broadly food sourcing for the network, SNAP outreach, advocacy, and then we have a special initiative that I'm over, which is the child hunger relief side, which is called Kentucky Kids Eat. And that's the child hunger relief program of Feeding Kentucky. And our job with Kentucky Kids Eat is to connect kids to healthy foods 365 days a year. We do not directly feed. We do not provide food directly to families. So we use what I have coined as the 4P to hunger-free process, which is essentially publicizing the problem of child hunger and food insecurity, promoting evidence-based strategies like Summer EBT, school meals that curb food insecurity and hunger, then partnering to put those strategies into practice, and then pushing policies. Next slide. So while the summer EBT, thank you for going back. So one of the key partnerships that we have with Kentucky Kids Eat and Feeding Kentucky is our longstanding relationship with Share Our Strengths No Kid Hungry campaign, and that's around the No Kid Hungry Kentucky, a public-private coalition that has the shared goal of ending child hunger in the Commonwealth. And what we do through No Kid Hungry Kentucky is that we work toward improving access or expanding access to school and community nutrition programs. And look, we've been addressing the complex issue of summer hunger in Kentucky for a decade through No Kid Hungry Kentucky, and we got to celebrate our 10th anniversary this summer, which was really nice. But addressing summer hunger is not new to us. We've been working on this for a decade. What is new to us was Summer EBT, which became a new program option for us in 2024. Next slide. Go back one. There should be a slide about why. Okay, go next slide. Sorry. All right. So during the school year in Kentucky, we have 1,302 Kentucky schools that participate in the National School Lunch Program. And at those schools, approximately 569,000 of those students are either program or income eligible for free and reduced price school meals. And typically on an average school day in Kentucky, you'll have about 495,000 students that participate in the National School Lunch Program. But when the school year ends, so do school meals. And during the summer, traditionally Summer Food Service Program, the Seamless Summer of the National School Lunch Program, they were designed to replace the school meals that children lose during summer when school is out of session. And despite the tremendous growth that we have had in Kentucky with the rural non-congregate option with Sun Meals to Go, we are still just reaching a fraction of those children that have access to free and reduced price school meals during the year. And based on our No Kid Hungry estimate, about 18% of those free and reduced eligible kids in Kentucky access summer meals during the 2024 summer. A little bit better in our rural communities. In every county in Kentucky, all 120 counties of Kentucky have rural areas that could potentially serve Sun Meals to Go. We do a little bit better. About 1 in 4 of those rural kids we're reaching with summer meals. But in our non-rural areas, and there's not that many in Kentucky, you're talking Louisville, Lexington, the greater Cincinnati area over in northern Kentucky, we're reaching even fewer children at only 6%, which makes Summer EBT a critical tool in our state to help alleviate the summer hunger gap. Next slide. So when we were thinking about outreach, we had done some preliminary work before the pilot, and this was actually through the FRAC Equitable Access to Child Nutrition Programs project, which was funded through the USDA through a cooperative agreement through them. And we were one of 5 sub projects of that national research project, if you will, because it was geared at research around what is creating barriers to access to child nutrition programs. Well, of those 5 projects, Kentucky was the only one who really focused on that summer space. And one of the things that we did was we really wanted to know from Kentucky families what their knowledge was about these programs, what were their barriers. Well, 1, do they access those programs? And then 2, what were those barriers to access? So we ended up surveying 104 families from Kentucky, of 17 Kentucky counties, and I've got the map up there in the left-hand corner, which shows the counties of residence. So we had a pretty good statewide sample about summer nutrition programs, including the summer meals and the non-congregate option, as well as summer EBT. The good news was, and this was during the late summer 2024 when we surveyed folks, is that folks generally knew what summer EBT, what it was, what the program was. They had heard of it. Then when we asked them if their children had received, you had a medley of folks that had received, that automatically got it, that had received it, but they had to apply. So that told us that a lot of families were being, the path to summer EBT, getting it in Kentucky was going to be varied, a multi-process for families, depending on where you lied in that application or automatic issuance process with summer EBT. But one of the key takeaways that we had from that parent and caregiver survey was that we knew that families trusted schools as their messenger. They wanted information to come from schools. And then they also like their information via social media. And as you can see, the other traditional options that we share information with families is not as popular, but schools and social media was what Kentucky families we surveyed is where they wanted their information about summer EBT to come from. Next slide. So what were our outreach strategies in Kentucky? Well, we really had a 4-pronged approach to how we were going to conduct outreach around summer EBT. We knew we wanted to trust schools as trusted messengers. So that particularly our CEP schools, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of CEP in Kentucky, but we knew we needed to equip schools with the trainings, tools, and strategic grant funding to help them enhance or to do new outreach to families around summer EBT. We also, we've been in this work for a decade, so you don't work in a silo. You have developed partnerships with other organizations, and we wanted to leverage those community partnerships with various organizations to help get the word out to families, to get those families accurate information that would help them know, am I eligible? And then do I need to apply? And if so, make sure that happens for them. We also, with outreach, we wanted to make sure we were advocating for children. So that we used an approach where we engaged our elected officials in outreach to families, but by doing so, we were able to educate those key decision makers on the program, why the program was so important in Kentucky and the need, and then also the benefits. So we got kind of a dual purpose out of engaging our community, our elected officials in our communities in our outreach efforts. And then what we wanted to make sure we had was an engagement with our state agency, because we wanted them to be supportive of the outreach that we were doing, sort of working in with some synergy with our state agencies to make sure that they were supportive of the outreach, they were aware of what we were doing, and really hoping to combine forces and energies to get the maximum impact from our work. Now, I will tell you, it took us a little while to get our state agency engaged with our work. In the year before, they expected many more applications for summer EBT than they actually had gotten, and we got brought in kind of late summer to kind of help with outreach. But we used that opportunity to continue that partnership, and it goes on today. And then also, Allison mentioned a little bit about the administrative cost of summer EBT. States do have some administrative costs. I think in Kentucky, it was estimated about $7.7 to $8.1 million to administer summer EBT. Well, we also have done some advocacy with our state and elected officials that that's a good investment. You need to make sure state funding is getting invested to make sure this program is a possibility in Kentucky. And by having our elected officials help with outreach, they got to see the benefits, to see the value of that cost investment. Next slide. So in Kentucky, we have the 6th highest percentage of schools that have adopted CEP in the nation during the 2024-25 school year. And the other states that beat us, the 5 that are higher, they all have done some type of healthy school meals for all legislation, or either they have a CEP subsidy like New York. And then West Virginia, of course, has great child nutrition legislation that really promotes that schools provide kids pretty much a barrier-free access to 2 school meals a day. But Kentucky on its own does fairly well with CEP adoption. We were one of the 3 states that helped roll out CEP to the nation during the 2021-22 school year, 2011-2012 school year. And it's spread across the state to the fact that today, there were children in every county, at a school in every county in Kentucky that got access to free meals because of CEP. And actually, we have, next slide, we have only about 140 of our NSLP participating schools that do not participate in CEP. So what does that tell us? We have about 600,000 children who are getting free access to school meals during the school year, which is a great thing. I mean, that's good. We want barrier-free access to school meals. But when it comes to summer EBT, that tells us we've got approximately 600,000 children in Kentucky that do not have a free and reduced application on file to streamline certify for summer EBT, meaning that if they're not getting SNAP in our state for at least a month in the prior fiscal year, if they weren't receiving SNAP, income-based Medicaid, we call our temporary assistance for needy families KTAP, the Kentucky Transitional Assistance Program, but it's the temporary assistance for needy family program, just a different name in Kentucky. Those kids got streamline certified. And then we also had children that were part of our kinship care were also streamline certified. So at CEP schools, if those children did not receive either SNAP, income-based Medicaid, KTAP, or kinship care for at least 1 month, from the 1st of July, 2024 to June 30th, 2025, those children would not automatically be streamline certified for summer EBT. So, and then there was also the hiccup with some compulsory ages. You had to be between ages 6 and 18 as of August the 1st, 2024 to automatically get it. So there were some hiccups with families where the older children are streamline certified and maybe the 6-year-old did not, or the child that turned 6 later in the school year. So there were some nuances around streamline certification. But what we knew With that many children at a CEP school, we knew that there were bound to be a large number of eligible children for summer EBT, that families must know that they were eligible and then make sure they apply to get it, or they would not receive the benefit. So what was our approaches in Kentucky with our interventions? Well, we developed a summer EBT eligibility screener tool, which I'm going to talk about the results of that a little bit later. We made ready-made materials for school staffs and families that they serve, so that the schools didn't have to reinvent the wheel when we created the materials that they could just use. And I actually dropped into the chat box our Kentucky School Guide to Summer EBT, which included fact sheets, templates for social media, graphics, captions, and even a timeline for social media posts, which folks have told me were helpful to keep them on schedule. You had templates for newsletters, robocalls. Another place where schools would distribute their information is something called Infinite Campus, which is a software or a portal system where school data and information is shared, but you can also communicate with families that way. Information was actually shared through the Infinite Campus platform, to the fact where it even filtrated our materials, filtrated down even to student email accounts in Jefferson County, which is actually our largest school district based out of Louisville. And then what we thought, to take that a step further, we wanted our community partners and our elected officials to have ready-made tools that all they had to do was just plug in what we had already created, maybe add their logo, and then put that on social media and other platforms. And we were pleasantly surprised at the number and variety of organizations in Kentucky that just did what we asked. We sent them the graphic, they slapped their logo in it, and that information went out. And at the same time, when all that information was going out from our partners and school districts across Kentucky, we got to build the No Kid Hungry Kentucky brand as a benefit of that, because our logo was also, and the Kentucky Kids Eat brand were also part of all of those graphics that went out across the state. Next slide. So the eligibility screener, it was tailorized where families would identify the school that their child attended, and we had broken down, we had developed a list of CEP and non-CEP schools that participate in the National School Lunch Program in Kentucky, so that the result that families would get was they asked a series of questions about whether they had received SNAP, KTAP, kinship care, income-based Medicaid, their age. Pretty much at the end of the screener, the family would be told whether or not they needed to apply, whether they were eligible and they needed to apply. If it was a child that would have streamlined certified, we would advise families that you should be automatically getting it. If you did not get it, you need to apply. So the common message, to make sure we didn't lose any kids that may have been caught in the cracks of the way the program streamlined certified, was the default was always to, if you haven't received and you think you should apply. So throughout the summer, we had about, I think it was a little bit higher actually. My counterpart that helps with the Kentucky campaign helped with these slides, but about 50,000 folks had used their eligibility screener during the summer based on our assessment of the visits to our website where the eligibility screener was tracked. And of those was about 12,000 organic views of our tools. And that was not promoted through any post or anything. They automatically found that. So that was pretty good. We thought that was pretty great with the eligibility screener. And then of course, our call to action was a two-step: find out if you're eligible, and then apply online or apply through our Department of Community-Based Services, which was our lead state agency for summer EBT. So once they did the eligibility screener, we would direct them to where they would apply if that's what they needed to do, or if they needed more information. Next slide. So, but before we got started, we really felt like, well, we need to make sure everybody's up to speed on what summer EBT is, that make sure all of our school folks know what this program is. Early in the year, earlier previously, I think the year before with pandemic EBT, maybe the flow of information so that schools got equipped with the information that they needed to help families when they would call in. Maybe there were some hiccups in terms of schools being equipped with all the information that they needed to know to be able to support families when they engaged around this program. So we wanted to get at summer EBT a little bit differently, where we wanted to kind of, in the beginning, make sure our schools and community partners had an opportunity to learn about the program, how the program will work, and how to handle the most common questions that they would get from their families and caregivers about the program. So we offered a webinar about the program through No Kid Hungry Kentucky and Kentucky Kids Eat in mid-May, where we had about 110 registrants. Now, that webinar was recorded. We posted it on our website. You can actually find if you go to the Kentucky School Guide, if you scroll down there, you can actually see a link to the webinar that we did, a recording of it, so that more folks were able to access that if they couldn't meet the particular date of the webinar. That's where we pretty much unveiled the materials we had created through the school guide. And as I said, had some support for common questions. And then we gave us a space for folks to share information with each other. What I had discovered early on when I got into kind of summer EBT, folks generally, social media is a good, you can put your pulse on what people think about programs or what their knowledge about programs is. And what I found was that there was a general thought that you had to get SNAP to be able to get summer EBT, and that you could not get summer EBT without SNAP, and those programs had somehow got connected. We also had discovered with our being the eligibility screener that folks in Kentucky do not always distinguish who is your provider of EBT in the state, because we have SNAP, WIC, and summer EBT that all issue benefits on EBT cards. To the public and the folks that receive this, they may not be aware of which program it is that is actually providing them the EBT benefits, because there was a lot of searches for EBT in Kentucky, not necessarily summer EBT. There was a lot of searches for Kentucky EBT, but carving out the general program names, sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle as well. But this was an opportunity for us to try to set that record straight with our school and community partners, so that when they were doing their outreach, they were able to inform and make sure their families were getting accurate information about the program. Next slide. So here's just some examples of the materials. Like the fact sheet for school staff was 3 pages long, but it really educated school staff on the program and then how they should assist their families. And we provided a algorithm, if you will, for families to say, is this a CEP school or a non-CEP school? And I will be upfront with you, not every school staff person knows if they're a CEP school or not CEP school. What they do know is if all their kids eat free school meals. So usually your first question was, does all the students at your school eat free meals without having to do an application? Yes. Well, you're likely a CEP school. So once we helped our school staff figure out if they were CEP or non-CEP, we really directed those different schools in 2 different paths. So our CEP schools, let me start with our non-CEP schools, because that's going to be a little simpler. We knew that their main focus with outreach was going to be around awareness, creating awareness that families that would automatically get it should be getting it. And if they're not getting it, make sure you follow up to see why. Because at our non-CEP schools, we knew that children that were on SNAP and our public assistance programs, those would streamline certify. But they also had free and reduced application on files, which was a second path to streamline certification. So generally, if you had done your due diligence to make sure every child in your school eligible for SNAP or Medicaid or those other programs were enrolled, and then you had done your due diligence to make sure that all your students had free and reduced meal applications on file, you taking care of your students for summer EBT, because they'd already done all the paperwork. They should have automatically gotten it. Whereas for CEP schools, the message that we got across to them was one of action, because they needed to make sure their families knew they needed to determine if their children were eligible, and then if they were eligible, if they needed to apply. If not, they were going to lose the benefit. So a lot of our focus around outreach was around our CEP schools in Kentucky, which that was the vast majority of them. Go ahead. Next, and additional outreach. So we decided the other thing, we created these wonderful materials, but were those materials getting the message we wanted to get across to families? Were they hitting the mark? So we decided that we wanted to really engage 2 districts, 2 to 3 was our outreach, with some grant funding to really put our resources into action to see how well they were perceived by families, and did families take action based on those resources? So we knew we would get more bang for our buck if we picked picked 2 to 3 of our largest school districts in Kentucky that were CEP. In Bullitt County Public Schools, which is right outside of Louisville, Shepherdsville and Mount Washington is the communities, if you're familiar with Bullitt County, Kentucky, but it's a Louisville suburb county. And then Jessamine County, which is a suburb county of Fayette, which is where Lexington is located. Those are large all CEP school districts, meaning Bullitt was partial CEP, Jessamine was all CEP. So we picked these large districts because we knew we were going to reach the most potential kids that may need to apply in these larger districts. And then we engaged a group called the Family Resource and Youth Service Centers in Kentucky schools. Now, I don't think that's a common position or a common center in schools in other states, but in Kentucky, we did some education reform in 1990 where these centers, which were to support families, were created as part of the CARA 1990 Education Reform Act. And the intent of these centers are to eliminate non-academic barriers to learning. So food insecurity, housing, all of those things that keep a child from reaching their full academic potential, friskies as we call them, are engaged in that discussion. So we knew that we had a group that was already doing outreach to families, probably families of need. So we engaged those to help us when getting that information out. And then we also created toolkits, as I said, for officials and community partners about midsummer to help with that promotion as well. And the response was incredible. We had, Chamber of Commerce's, elected officials putting out our materials. The University of Kentucky put out our materials. We had school districts and health departments and public libraries. And it was just a wide array of organizations across Kentucky that took our materials and flyers and then distributed them far and wide. Next slide. So what lessons did we learn? Well, we knew that school districts and community partners are eager to help because everyone is vested in making sure no child goes hungry in Kentucky. What we did learn is that they needed that information sooner. We really needed to work with schools before the end of the school year to make sure that information gets out to families. And then the other thing we learned was that there were positions in school districts, particularly at CEP schools, that deal with those children that are income eligible or program eligible for free and reduced kids that aren't being directly certified. So they know who those children are to do more, even more targeted outreach among those families. A great opportunity because Summer Meals is exploding in Kentucky, and being able to combine promotion of the Sun Meals and Sun Meals to Go program with Summer EBT in Kentucky, which technically is Sunbucks in other states. But those three programs are supposed to work in a complementary and tandem fashion to replace the school meals that children lose over summer. And making sure those connections between those three programs was one of the products of this outreach, because our Sun Meals and our Sunbucks stuff are in two different state agencies that may not always streamline those communications. And what just amazed us was the information spread organically and quickly. And every time I would get on my Facebook page or Instagram, one of our slides would pop up and I'd be like, well, who's sharing now? And it wasn't necessarily someone that I had a conversation with, but it was maybe the sixth degree of Kevin Bacon, whatever that relationship is. It would have been someone I'd had a conversation with that was maybe 2 degrees down the road that they had gotten the materials and passed it along. So it was just very natural how quickly it spread. Next slide. All right. So what are we doing now? So during the school year, the most wonderful thing you can do with the outreach during the school year is you don't really even have to do outreach around Summer EBT. You need to be doing outreach around SNAP in schools to make sure every child that's eligible for SNAP is getting enrolled, because that's going to streamline certify them, and we're working on that. The other thing is to make sure all your schools that still do free and reduced applications, those are being collected, and that your response rate are high on those. And then work with those staff that are directly working with those families that are going to need to apply. In Kentucky, that's something called the FRAM coordinators at CEP schools. So we have some steps ahead to get ready for summer 2026. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll cover those later. Summer?
Thank you so much, John. That was such valuable information. We've made it to our Q&A. We have a minute left. So if anyone has any questions, definitely type them into the chat box. While people think through all the information that we just shared, I want to just highlight our end slide, which has all of our emails. That's myself, Allison, and John. We also have QR codes that take you directly to No Kid Hungry and Feeding Kentucky, and you can learn more about our work there. John or Allison, anything you'd like to add in our final seconds?
Well, there's actually a great question about timelining for outreach. I don't know, John, do you want to take that one? Like, what is a good time to start thinking about this?
We information out before the end of the school year. So there are I'm thinking of what, even in addition to our outreach materials, there are letters that you can send families ahead of time. The USDA, as part of their communication toolkit for the SUM programs, has template letters that you could be sending families to let them know that they're likely eligible, but they need to apply. But I would certainly say before the end of the school year is when you would start probably communicating, I would say March, April-ish, about summer EBT, because then you need to let families know that they're going to be eligible. You need to also let families know who is going to automatically get it, because once they get a letter saying they should automatically get it, if they don't receive it, then they'll know who to follow up with or where to follow up, as well as some tentative dates of when those benefits should be issued to those automatically eligible. So I would start in the spring. You want to make sure families are equipped with this information before the end of the school year. But as I said kind of in the last couple slides, was that really during the school year, you could still be doing outreach around summer EBT, although you're not technically saying summer EBT, and that is through SNAP in Schools outreach to make sure that every child eligible for SNAP is enrolled. We know in Kentucky that we don't get all of our children that are eligible on SNAP. So you could also do that, which also will actually help your school with its ISP that ties into CEP and will help its reimbursement higher for school meals, but that's a whole nother presentation. But anyway, SNAP in School outreach is good, and do that all year long. And then if you are a school that still does free and reduced applications, you would want to work on those pretty much any time through the year, because you can fill out a free and reduced application at any point during the year. It's not just before the October 1st deadline that they like to say. And particularly with the government shutdown, we were really encouraging folks, reach out to your families. If someone has been laid off or they've lost some income, they may be eligible for free and reduced meals. They just need to fill out an application. So SNAP outreach, free applications all through the year. Spring, start your summer EBT specific outreach.
Amazing.
And thank you for the compliment, Samantha. It's really nice. I always appreciated John Kane presentation. I try to put a lot of energy into them.
I was just going to highlight that. You're a celebrity here, John. We're so excited to have you.
Well, I appreciate that. That makes me feel good.
Well, thank you so much to all of our speakers. I just wanted to share that up next we have where we'll present the Hunger Free Communities Award. So make sure to not miss that. To join that, click the agenda in your navigation bar to the left of your screen. And that wraps it up here for us in this session. So thank you so much for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.